Hi there, this is David, and we have some new RPG news, or maybe old RPG news, depending on how you look at this. We have two big companies, Sega and Falcom, both planning to get back into the retro scene, both planning for some remakes, some spin-offs, or some re-releases of their older catalog. So that's really exciting to me. I am thoroughly looking forward to this. Let's look at this article right here from IGN. It says Sega is planning multiple remakes and spin-offs of its past games for release this year. That is key. It says here that Sega outlined some of its plans for the current fiscal year, and one of those plans includes multiple titles that Sega considers remake, remaster, spin-off, change of theme material. So, yeah. Then it gives some examples of what games like that would be, mostly like action games, Sonic, Super Monkey Ball, that sort of stuff. However, it also says that Sega is trying to ramp up its production, aiming to publish 13 games during that same period, which would be from this April to next March. And only last year they published only 7 games during that fiscal year period. So it looks like they're almost doubling the amount of games that they are going to be producing. So far, Sega has already announced Sonic Frontiers, Sonic Origins, Soul Hackers 2, yes please, definitely looking forward to that, Endless Dungeon, 2 Point Campus, and then it says it's also possible that 13 Sentinels is also going to be released during that time period. So that brings it up to about 7 games that we don't know about yet, with some possible remakes or remasters. And then they go on to list some games that they would like to see, which are games that I wouldn't like to see. I would like to see maybe a continuation of Landstalker, or a remake of that. Maybe dipping back into Skies of Arcadia. That game was fan-freaking-tastic. You'd fly around on an airship, go exploring. Lots of fun characters, just so joyful, so good. The Shining Force series, maybe go into that, especially the Shining Force series that it was difficult for Western gamers to get their hands on. Shining Force 1 and 2 on the Genesis were easy enough to get our hands on, but then whenever it came into Shining Force 3, Shining Wisdom, Shining in the Holy Ark that became out on the Dreamcast and the Saturn, those were much more difficult to get our hands on. Maybe go ahead and release those, do a compilation package, that would be fantastic. Maybe like a Shining Force collection. Oh man. Speaking of collections, Phantasy Star. That is their namesake RPG, which is kind of a shame because the last time they produced a real Phantasy Star game was back on the Genesis with Phantasy Star 4 End of the Millennium. So, I mean, I don't understand why they can't make a Phantasy Star 5 in this day and age, or go ahead and remake those Phantasy Star games, hopefully really help 1, 2, and 3. I know that they have done some remakes of those Phantasy Star games, but those remakes were kind of left over in Japan. Localize them, bring them over here, release them. I would be all about it. I would love to see some Phantasy Star. If they're going to be going back, dipping into this library and remaking some of their old stuff, then yeah, go into Phantasy Star. And then the other company that looks to be kind of dipping back into their past library is Falcom, wanting to release retro titles on the Nintendo Switch. So it says right here that the president is familiar with the Switch, that his children play it all the time, and he wants to release some retro titles on it. However, they wouldn't appear physically, they would appear as digital downloads. And it also seems like he's really trying to reference his PSP titles. So if you remember, Falcom released a lot of games on the PSP that they can easily port on over to the Switch. Pretty much all the Trails games, Trails in the Sky, Trails of Zero, Trails of Azure, they were all released on the PSP. Even the Gagkar Trilogy was released on the PSP. The Ys games were released on the PSP, so we're looking at pretty much the vast majority of the Trails series, the vast majority of the Ys series as well, from Ys 1 all the way up through Ys 7. And yeah, it would be great to get those games on the Switch for an easy way to play. I've been going to some retro game stores lately, and I remember picking up the Ys games for like $15, $20. Now they're like $60, $70. They have really skyrocketed in price, and those Ys PSP remakes are fantastically done. They are superb. But then there's some other games that Falcom has in their retro library that I would love to see released digitally as well, such as Pop Full Mail. That game is fun. That is a Working Designs Falcom classic action RPG. The Gagkar Trilogy, which I previously mentioned, which is some of the first Trails games. The ones that were released on the PSP, the localization wasn't so hot. So maybe go back and relocalize those, or release the actual Windows versions of them, if they could put those on the Switch, because the Windows versions of the Gagkar Trilogy were much better than the PSP versions of the Gagkar Trilogy, but those, again, remained only in Japan. Then there's the Dragon Slayer games that they could dip into. There was a ton of those way back when. They were kind of the precursor to the Trails series. And the Trails series came out of the Dragon Slayer series. And then there is kind of one missing Trails game, which is Dragon Slayer Legend of Heroes 2, which is the only one that was actually never localized in English. So yeah, we have some huge libraries here to go through from some classic game designers, and they're both looking to release and to go back into their libraries and release these games that that I grew up with, that I'm sure a lot of y'all grew up with, that I would love to see what they could do with it now with their new technology. What games are you looking forward to? What games would you like to see come from these companies? Let me know in the comments, and as always, have a good day.